Hi everyone and welcome back to another video with me, Shruti. You're watching Livingourascension. So in today's video, I want to speak about, the subject of violence. And recently I was speaking to a few people and, this theme kind of came up with a few of them in different ways, in one way or another, directly or indirectly. And so I always know when that happens that, it's a sign from the universe for me to make a video on that subject or to speak about it in some way, in a larger way. So that's why, I'm filming this today. And, I might be giving some specific instances, like I always, give examples of real life situations and especially, what this person was speaking about with me. But it's not specifically about them. So, I just want to remind that, and I try and do that every time. So this is just, my perspective, my opinion on this, and mostly, for anyone else who's wondering about the same thing, because we all as humans have similar questions. We might be going through different circumstances, but some universal themes, they're the same for everyone, and we all kind of question the same things. So so that's why I'm filming this, if you want to hear my views on this subject. So basically, this person that I was speaking to, they are in the military, and then that's why, the subject of violence came up, because they kind of agreed that war is not, the ultimate solution. Like, war is not perhaps, the best thing. But they asked me a question like, why don't you like violence? Like, why do you abhor the act of violence or the not so conducive aspects of human civilization? This is what they were asking me, what I think about that. And I said that I don't abhor anything, I don't hate anything. It's just that I don't choose it as part of my life. Because it all has to do with our vibration and what we are choosing. So when everything in our life that happens in the external and internally has to do with something that's going on within, and so it has to do with the vibration that we hold. And it's fine for everyone. All of us have something or the other that we are dealing with, things that need to be seen, things that need to be integrated, and that's all fine. But what I want to point out, and what I always point out, is that, the most important thing is when we can't see what that is. So it's all about, just being aware. And when we are not aware of what's really going on inside of us, then those things, they kind of control us. So my response to, this person was that I don't abhor violence. Violence is just something, and especially at this time, like, we need the military, like a war-like situation, like defense and stuff for the country is necessary, unfortunately, because of the way that humanity has made themselves, for the current circumstances. But that doesn't mean, that it's the highest reality. It's basically just not the highest reality. And so every human has the choice whether or not to choose it. So I'm sorry about if there's any noise that's coming in into the recording. That's because I'm at a friend's place and I'm watching over their baby, and yeah, so that's just the nanny that's playing with the baby. If you hear that in the background, that's what it is. But what I wanted to say was that and then they had some other arguments that they were saying, and I, usually I don't really like to argue with people anyway. I have my own, thoughts on different things, but if I have come to a point of completion within myself, about what I think about something, like I've come to the core truth, after that there's no need for that person to go and, usually there's no need to go and debate it with anyone else. Like, it's a truth that it's something that's sacred. Usually, fewer words do justice to truth anyway. Truth is something that's more internal, that's felt, and then the people who are in touch with a certain truth, with the most core truth, you'll find that they are the ones that speak the least. They don't, because they're not still trying to resolve things within themselves, so they don't desire this, talking to everyone about it and gathering opinions especially. So one of the first things that I'll say is, be honest about about that. If you are still gathering opinions and you're wanting to debate with other people about something in your life, be humble enough to accept that perhaps maybe this is something I'm still resolving. I haven't reached the core truth yet, which is why this is a need for me. So that would be my first thing, advice to anyone like that, because we all need to be humble on this journey. Like, I don't think I know everything about everything either. It's and even when you come to the level of knowing truth in things, like you can see it quite easily, even then you are always expanding, and what you need to focus on, your service, everything is, life is always unfolding. So we're always coming to terms with something. And it's best to be in a state of humility within that and just be open and aware. That's all, that's all we need to do. We need to be open and aware. We don't need to be 100% knowledgeable about anything. And it's just about, being open to the journey. And so another argument that they were presenting to me was that they said that one of the highest philosophical ideas of the Orient was chosen to be delivered in a common man's tongue through a stage of war. And I don't know if there's any other classical texts or these tales and fables or epics that came from the Orient that related to this, but immediately I thought of the Mahabharata, which is an Indian epic. And it's about two parties. They there's two parties, and they come to war within themselves. And one is more, you can say, kind of so I don't really fully know the details of the story. I read it when I was a child, and I watched it a little bit, but I understood the core concept behind it, and I remember that I even enacted it, like when I was in school. I played Arjun, and so Arjun was this man, and he was asked to basically take part in war, because this division had happened between people who knew each other. They were close to each other. I believe that they were family or relatives of some sort. However, there had to be a divide because of the differences, of what people chose. And there's a sense that one party was more in the right, like they were following righteousness, and it was like the path of dharma, or the righteous path, whereas the other ones, so this man, anyway, Arjun, he was in a dilemma what to do, because he didn't want to go and kill these his own relatives or people he had known, people that he loved. And that's when Lord Krishna came to him and was like, that no, sometimes a human has to choose what's right, has to choose what is demanded of him, what dharma is, which means the higher will. And so he was, by Lord Krishna, he was kind of encouraged to go into war for that reason. And I immediately thought of this example when this person gave me this example. And even if you're giving another example, what I want to say is that, first of all, you're right that, that this fable, or this epic rather, was delivered to the common public, to the masses, as an example of righteous living. And it did have a story of war in it, but also it represented another time. So the earth goes through different phases. It has a history, and if you study astrology, or even just the ancient texts, they speak about different timelines that the earth has had. Like, the Kal Yuga is common. Everybody knows about the Kal Yuga. Everybody's heard this word, in India anyway. Or in English, that would be, like we're now coming into the golden age, like we're about to step into the golden age, and then there were the dark ages and stuff like that. So there were different ages, and different ages had different needs, because it was a different vibration that the earth was holding, and the earth is not as if the earth is impure in some way. It's just that, it's a play of different densities. So when we all emerged from source, when we were all born, and all of creation, not just humans, but the stars, the planets, the universes, when they were created, they all belong in different dimensions. And just like when you expand, let's say, as a creator in your own life, you will begin with something. You will begin with an idea first, so it'll be more like a philosophy. You'll be playing with ideas, and then you'll be putting it to test, through physical objects, and then it'll become more and more physical in that way. So we expand through that something more subtle becoming more and more, light coming in as an idea becoming more and more dense. And so there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually progress. That's actually expansion. It's growth. We get to see ourselves in action as the creator, as co-creators with source, when we create things out in the world. So it's not that if you are creating physical things, there's something wrong with you, or that's lowly in any way, right? So in a similar way, the densest of dimensions, are not, there's nothing wrong with them. It's not as if they are worse off. So what I was saying was that, everything was right for a certain time, and there were these different, like I said, epics, fables, whatever you want to call it, different examples in one form or another that were delivered to humanity, as a way of righteous living within that age, within whatever was happening in that age, whatever the dominant energy was. And the dominant energy back then was a lot more dense than it is now. So just like I speak about, in my videos, that the masters today are living differently, like they're not going and living in caves. Most people are called to work from within society, normal society in the normal ways and the careers that people have, but function within that and live as the ascended human. And that is how we are changing society, because the needs of the hour are different. And for example, this person, I was speaking to them, and they seemed a little bit surprised that I was charging for my services. Like they asked me that, are your services for free or something like this. So these ideas belonged in the past. Perhaps in the past people needed to see that righteous example of someone who is serving the light and is just is all about that. But today it's a little different, and I can't explain in every video the same thing, so I won't go into that in so much detail. I'll try and stick to the point. But the main point that I'm trying to convey is that it was a different era, and it was the right example for a different era. Now it's a different thing, because these wars that have happened, they are not just on Earth. They have to do with the history of the universe as well, and these wars that happened in the solar system. And you can read the books of Sal Rakelli if you want, that have this history as well, if you're interested. But there's all of these wars that happen. So we carry this consciousness, this remembrance in our body, this coming from light, and then experiencing this density, this play of polarity, this play of duality. And polarity, of course, is something that's pure. It's like the yin yang, that there's the light and the dark, so it's all pure. But duality is when we internalize it and we see division. For example, in polarity, if you look at the yin yang symbol, both belong in one. The black and the white, they have the opposite color inside them as well. That means that they flow, energy is flowing. It transforms from one state to another, and it's always part of that whole. But duality is something different. Duality is the experience when we see ourselves as separate, that this is white, this is black or something, and it's just separate. And nothing, of course, in truth exists in separation. So anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is that if you really want to live in the past, and you want to live in the memory of within the same vibration that was prevalent years ago and millennia ago, then that's your choice. As a human, you have that choice. That's why this is still a very war-prone planet. There's wars that are going on, not just ones that are between countries, but just how we live, how we sustain ourselves, how we feed ourselves. There's war that's going on inside of us in so many different ways. But as an individual, it's up to you what you want to choose. So you don't have to be in that state. So my main point that I want to say to this person, for example, a person who comes to me and says the same thing, why is war so wrong? And it's not wrong, but it's that, do you really want to choose it for yourself? It's really about what you desire. Everybody, for example, let's take the example of the military, because that's what we began with. Perhaps there's lots of beings who are holding that vibration that they feel like war is necessary. You know, they, like lots of people here in India, when I meet them, you know, they have this very nationalistic sort of, and nationalism is fine, but sometimes it crosses over into hatred for the other, you know, like Pakistan, like India and Pakistan have had a war, for example. So people can be quite against, you know, certain countries and stuff like that. It's not just in India, it happens a lot everywhere. But I can't play with you right now. This is my friend's dog, Maya. She wants me to play with her. And this person that I was speaking to, you know, they showed me these pictures, these paintings that they had made. And when I saw the paintings, you know, I was pretty stunned, because they were flowing from truth. You know, there were these paintings of love. You know, I remember that there was this tree that was there. There was like a child that's below the earth, and there's a tree that's kind of growing out of its navel, and it's connecting to the galaxies and stuff. It was very full of love, and, you know, representing like the sacred principles, a couple of other of their paintings as well. And yet they, you know, they're serving the military as well at the same time. And of course, you know, I celebrate the beauty of the human, the fact that, you know, the same person can do this. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it, and that's not what I told them either. But they still had these questions, and what I thought about it, they wanted to know. So this is what I meant, that, you know, they have this, I could see just from their paintings, you know, that they have this, that they are a being of love. They're actually here to serve that, you know. But also sometimes, you know, the blue ray especially, beings who are serving the blue ray is a ray of power. It's, you know, the first ray. It's the ray of divine will. It's the ray of the divine masculine, and it has to do with this, you know, knowing what is right and then charging ahead, and, you know, it has to do with protection and stuff like that. But, you know, but kind of the lower form of that, you know, then becomes war and becomes violence as well, rather than just this protection that comes from this, you know, all-permeating sense that, you know, you belong to everything and everything belongs to you, and so you are safe within that because you're a part of it. Whereas, you know, war and violence, to me anyway, you know, is a much lower form of that. It's not that there's that I'm labeling those people as bad or evil or anything like that. Like I began this video by saying that perhaps, you know, defense and the military is even necessary at this point because of the history that we have created, because of the mass consciousness that we as humans have created. But you as an individual, when you're coming from this state of love, that you're making such paintings, they're flowing from you freely, you know, and there's like these sacred principles that are there that perhaps you're not even aware yourself that you are depicting, because they're just coming from flow. That's happening from one side, and then on the other hand, you know, if you're a soldier, you're involved in war and stuff like that, you're serving that. You know, ask yourself, is that why I'm still having these questions? Because if you were really at a place of peace and you know, within yourself, I would understand, you know, and that would be fine. But if you're asking somebody else for their opinion on this, on the way that you're living your life, you know, and I wasn't even very super keen on giving them these answers, you know, so it's not like I was showing a whole bunch of enthusiasm about it, but they kept asking me. And we do this, the human does this, we all do this when we are still searching for the truth, that we have hit maybe a certain level of truth, but we haven't gone to the core. When you hit that, it's a state of complete contentment, of knowing, you know, what your direction is in the now. So if you're looking kind of, you know, almost for validation from someone else still, then, you know, be a little bit open the heart a little bit, and just listen from the heart, you know, instead of like from the ears or from the mind or from your logic, you know. So, you know, let go of that for a second and just open the heart as well, and just receive this, that perhaps, you know, there is some more that you can allow for, and that doesn't happen through reasoning and logic. This person seemed to be quite good with their logic and reasoning, you know, and debating, but that's not the same as opening the heart. Like, in order to be a being of love and to come to truth, both has to happen. The masculine, which is our side of logic, and also love, you know, which is from the heart, which is open to expansion, which is open to experience, is the main thing. Like, lots of people find it easy to be a being of love as such, you know, like they accept everyone, they accept different realities, but to allow the death process within yourself first. You know, when you actually allow that, that's the feminine also, the heart opening up, to allow this death process, to be able to experience it fully. When you fully allow that, then so much of it won't happen in your external. It won't be needed. You won't fall into circumstances where you, let's say, it seems like there's no other choice but to choose that, or that it just naturally just flows around you all the time. And how we allow the death process in the heart is allowing those painful experiences that have happened, like if you are so for example, if you've served in the military or you've seen war happen, it's hard to admit that, the human often, especially during childhood, will suppress everything, whereas it's as adults we're supposed to get into those feelings and allow ourselves to feel them, the horror, the pain, and everything that is associated with that. And just as an observer, I'm not saying that you have to completely become that and then you see nothing positive in life. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about coming from the wholeness of what we are, that is the higher self. When we go in knowing that we are a wholesome being, and we just need to observe what's going on like a movie, and then allow the heart to open, to melt. If you have to cry, if whatever has to happen, let it happen. But the thing is that if you are going back to that logic each time and you're not fully allowing the heart to open, and you're still allowing violence even though you have touched a certain level of love, you see how big a conflict there is. Like most people who are really choosing war, they will go in one direction, like they will have all of these logics to convince themselves, and they won't at the same time usually be, these sacred principles won't be flowing through them. And usually these sacred principles won't be flowing through them through art or in other means. So you see how big a dichotomy this is, like how this divide that's there, and that is painful for the body to handle, like when you have such both extremes in one person. But this is also the quality of the bluray. People who are bluray souls, often they have come here for the purpose to serve, but they came here on they're actually very powerful beings, and they have this knowledge, this remembrance of what power is, what protection is, what the divine will is, more than anything else, what dharma is, and how to carry that out. But until that hasn't fully, the heart doesn't open up and it hasn't become fully purified within themselves, to distinguish, then again they will attract more of these extreme cases in their life, because like I said, they're beings of power. So when power hasn't become purified, then it becomes more like chaos. So I hope that I explained that well, and yeah, so basically all I'm trying to say is that you have this choice. No human is at a level where they actually don't have a choice. Like, I know that life sometimes puts us in these situations and we feel like we don't have a choice, but you do. It has to do with how you embrace that feeling of helplessness, terror, fear, whatever it might be, or that difficult choice that you have to make. Don't feel like you are helpless, you have no way out. The moment that we just embrace that and we identify with that is what I am, this limited person, this limited physical body, and what can I do? Or this is just the reality and I have to just be in it, then that's when things start becoming that way in our life. So remember that you have a choice. So you made that choice, and if you're happy with that choice, then stay in that choice, but otherwise, if there's agitation within you still, or you're still looking for answers, then be open to truth. Open your heart to let your heart open up. Maybe there are other choices for you as well. There's lots of beings who are choosing duality, and maybe you don't have to. Maybe this is your way, life's way of showing you that. So as a final note, I also want to say that, they also had one more argument, which I'm also going to speak about. They said that one's state of being is independent of environment, actions, and thoughts that the body experiences or does. So, because we were speaking about war, and they were saying that, even if there's war happening, or like they serve the military, and I agree with you, yeah, one state of being is independent of the environment, of actions and thoughts. Well, I don't agree with the fact that one state of being is independent of our own actions. No, that is not true at all. But yeah, you can be in a state, in an environment that's around you, people are choosing a certain thing, a certain level of density, and you can exist as a multi-dimensional being, I'm not saying you exist as a higher vibrational being. See that I notice that I use the term multidimensional means that you also belong within that dimension too, the third dimension, and perhaps others are only identifying and serving within that dimension. But when you have an awareness of being multidimensional, you can live from all of those aspects and still serve in the third dimension. And you will be in an environment, let's say that other people are choosing a certain level of density that you can't help, like your country is in a state of war, or you are, you're so, whatever it is, something's happening. But your choices and actions, however, you always have a choice, and you will find a way even when it seems impossible. Like everybody's asked to go to war, everybody's asked to become a soldier, the state is in a national state of emergency, your country, whatever it might be. When the vibration within you shifts, it's just vibrational law, like things around you will shift no matter how dire the situation is. And I can't prove this, I can't explain it to you, but if you want to experience it, just open the heart to experience. And it all begins with knowing that you belong to something greater, and that love is all there is, and that you don't have to choose certain things that you don't find the best. So this is the thing, like they agreed to the fact that that this is perhaps not the most graceful state for a human, choosing war. If you agree with that, if you don't agree with that, then that's fine, then you're doing something that you agree with, right? Like if you believe that war is essential, or war is good, or it's good to kill people, or something like that. If you don't believe that, as the highest state, don't compromise and live in something that is lower than that. There's always a way. Of course, even I'm living, in a reality that's third dimensional, but you will always find within things, that you can live in your own way. And so the actions that you do, you are responsible for. You can't just say that my being, like my soul, is independent of my actions, of the human body. No. When enlightenment is when the soul and the body merge as one, they become one, they are not two separate things. And even when this person was speaking to me, they were speaking to me like they had made these beautiful paintings, like I said, and they told me that the name that they use, they kept saying that name, like for example, I won't say what their name is, of course, that's not what I'm going to do, but let's say that their name is Shruti. Then they were saying Shruti made these paintings, and Shruti is an aspect of me, Shruti makes these paintings, whereas I'm separate. And there was this sense of separateness for them, even in their normal speech, how they were speaking to me. So please understand that we do this thing, like when we go through dire situations like war, because a split happens, that is not the healthiest state to be in. When you have this split, there aren't different parts of you in the sense of you identifying as one, one part of me paints and does this, and I'm someone separate with completely different values. That's not how it goes. The same value flows through all of the dimensions, all of your multidimensional levels. It fuses, you become one being. Yes, you have different parts of you, the soul, the human body, and there's even other higher parts that I won't get into in this video. But all of you becomes one. That is the state of enlightenment. And until we are referring to two separate things, or more than two as separate, we are still in a state of separation. That union has not yet happened. So this is just, what I would like to say, because I find that, people who are looking for answers, they may or may not even admit it to themselves. Or, sometimes you'll say this to them and they'll get triggered, they'll get angry with you. But if you keep coming back to me and you're poking and you're asking for answers, then ask yourself why that is. And this is my reply to you. This is the best reply that I can give, because I already, on an individual basis, already spoke to this person, gave them some of my opinions. But, after a few times of back and forth, I can't just address one person. And also, this theme was coming up, in other ways as well. So I thought I'd make a video, for anyone out there who's wondering. Of course, everybody's situation is not going to be as extreme that they are in a state of war, but, we all go through different wars of our own. And so how to navigate that, how to choose it. And, it's at different stages of your ascension as well. You will be asked to choose love again and again. And those of us who have realized, that violence is not necessary, like let's say it is out there in the world, there's still duality, but we don't have to choose it for ourselves. We can create our own reality and function as a sovereign being, that's within the external environment, whatever's there. And so in one line, if I were to answer this question, is violence necessary? No, it's not. You know, that it might be around you, but it doesn't have to be in you. You don't have to choose it for yourself. And many of us are living this way as well. You know, we are transforming into love and living as love. This is the creation of the new earth. It begins from within first. It's not just that you're going to see it outside of you and everything's going to be perfect. You know, no country is going to have a war. There's going to be no need for defense or no need for government. Everybody will just be a sovereign, and then you will step in, you know, you will kind of step into your power. You will choose love. That's not how it goes. It needs to happen here first. You as an individual need to choose love. New earth is built by activating new DNA, new awareness within yourself first. So but many of us are living this reality, you know, no matter what kind of density I go through. For example, you know, I've come back here to India after 10 years, and before coming here I was speaking to a lot of friends and speaking to them about how I'm very worried, because when I last came here, you know, a couple of years ago, it was really hard for me because it's so polluted. You know, the pollution levels here in Delhi are extremely high. It's one of the most polluted cities in the world. And I'm somebody who's very, very sensitive to air pollution, especially, you know, especially when you purify yourself, you go through a certain level in your ascension. You know, your body changes, your needs change. And it's not only emotionally and, you know, at an energy level, at a consciousness level that you require things to be pure. Also the food that you feed yourself, everything that you're breathing, whatever, needs to be pure in order to, you know, maintain that purity, in order for it to be, because otherwise, again, there's that great difference that happens, you know, that I was explaining before, that here there's this high level of purity and high vibration, and when it hits like a huge level of density, there's more chaos that's bound to happen then. That's why more people don't choose ascension, don't choose self-mastery, don't choose something that is different, because they're afraid to go through that process, you know, of seeing this here and this there. Like it's harder to manage. So some people just, like most people, just live in a state of suppression one way or another, you know. So do from time to time make sure that you check in with yourself to see that you're not doing something that's called spiritual bypassing, you know, which is when we know these laws of the universe, these higher laws and everything, and we know them at an intellectual level, but we haven't really allowed the feeling to happen here, the death process to happen here, for all of the horror and, you know, the wounds and whatever that we have identified with in our life, which each human has gone through. Even if, you know, your life has been perfect, there's still collective memory that's there. And if all of that hasn't surfaced within you, you haven't fully accepted it as love. And, you know, there's a certain level of that hasn't happened, where you haven't fully seen the mirror, you know. So when that's the case, that is when we tend to spiritually bypass as well, you know, that we will have all of these higher laws, and we'll apply it to something very limited, like we'll explain that war is justified because of these higher laws. You know, of course, yeah, it's one thing that's happening, it's one reality, but the same higher laws, you know, there's multiple dimensions, so dimensions that exist in a higher level of density. You know, the same principle plays out in ways that are much more harmonious as well. Are you choosing that, or do you want to choose war? So it's not about hating war or, you know, judging people who are in war. It's about, do you want to choose it for yourself? If you think, if you believe within yourself that, you know, it's harmful for humans and it hurts them, or you don't want to actually hurt anyone or kill anyone, yet at the same time you are doing it, that is very painful for the human. You know, when you believe one thing and you do the opposite, this is the most painful state to be in, you know, one of the most painful states. And that is all that I'm trying to bring home, is to identify that to see that. Because when we first see that, oh, I believe this, but what I did was the opposite, you know, that is the most painful thing for us to see. And when we haven't fully allowed ourselves to go into that, that is when these divisions happen, like this split, you know. You can't face something, like the second that it starts to surface, you split. So bring that together, and the way to bring that together is to see everything as it is, to allow your heart to feel, to allow that death process to happen. So, you know, if you are really on the path of ascension, if you are really interested in self-mastery, be honest with yourself, you know, at all stages of your self-mastery. I do this on a continual basis myself as well, you know, that we have to do this evaluation, and just be aware and see things as they are, and be humble. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. I hope that this video was helpful, and you know, soon I will probably be making another video as well that also had to do with a question or what I saw, perhaps not a question that someone asked, but what I've been seeing as well and observing. So if you would like to check out my personal services and work with me to accelerate your path to ascension, to self-mastery, I work as a spiritual guide. You know, I don't believe in anyone healing anyone, but I act as just the way shower and you know, just kind of like the facilitator and just the neutral facilitator, you know, for spirit. So check out the different services that I have on my blog. Right now I'm running everything through my blog, not my website, so that'll be on the screen, www.livingourascension.blogspot.com. And also I've recently shifted to India, so I'm actually now in New Delhi at the moment, and you might find that actually all of my services, you know, the prices have gone down, except for the art-based services. I think I've adjusted the prices because this is a different country with you know, slightly different or vastly different circumstances. So since I move around a lot, I do tend to adjust. I mean, or I was moving around so far. So I think some of my viewers might be pleased to hear that as well. There was a sale that was going on at the beginning of this year, and I'd you know, because of the sale I'd made the prices lower, and then now I just kept them as that permanently. So please check all of that out, and I'll see you very soon in the next video. Let me know also what you would like to hear. If you have any questions, what kind of video you would like me to make. Thank you very much for watching.